So who in the room is a woman? Raise your hand. Who's proud to be a woman? Okay, I'm in the right place. It's International Women's Day. Woo! I just want to say a huge thank you to Nina for having me. Cultmere is one of my all-time favorite platforms. Every time I am in a panic, I don't know what to wear, I go there for inspiration. It's absolutely incredible, and it's always amazing to, meet a fellow, can I say that about myself? Just a badass boss lady. So Nina, thank you so much for having me on your panel. And the segment we're talking about now, I'll quickly introduce myself, I always forget to do that. My name's Natalie Salmon, I'm editor at HelloFashion. And I'm gonna let my lovely panelists introduce themselves because if they're anything like me, they'll love talking about themselves as much as I do. But yeah, I wanted to open up with the business of influence, which for me is one of the most fascinating topics as a journalist. Obviously, you guys know, or may not know, that the influencer market size has tripled since 2019, and it's set to be worth 22 billion by 2025. It's worth 21 billion now, so that's not bad. And influencer marketing is so mainstream that 93% of brands have used it. So there's never been a better time, I think, to really dissect, unpick with our lovely panel how it works. So we really wanted to do this to understand how they use influence to create successful brands. So I'm going to hand it over to you guys if you'd like to introduce yourselves very briefly. I know we don't have much time on each panel and there's a lot to get through.
Hi, everyone. Thanks for having me today. That was a great intro. My name's Hannah Rasekh. I am a circular fashion consultant. I specialize in regenerative and circular fashion systems. I head up communications at a tech platform called Save Your Wardrobe. We build aftercare solutions for brands. And I'm also involved in a resale platform called Hardly Ever Worn It. And I use Instagram to sort of promote these businesses and any brands I consult with and on. And it's sort of just a creative outlet for me. And I just feel like it spotlights the incredible work that a lot of brands do.
So we come as a pair. I'm Olivia, this is Alice, we're sisters. We have a brand called Amelia Jane, and that actually was started before our influencer platform. We started in 2014. We didn't really know what we were doing. We just sort of started with a product, actually, and worked backwards. We didn't have a website. We didn't have anything to base it on. We just started selling the product and thought we quickly need to create social media. We created a Facebook page, an Instagram page, and from there, we started to realize how one could work with influencers in order to create sales. We also wear matching outfits quite a lot, as you can see. And people used to say to us that we should also document our own outfits. At first, we thought maybe that would be fun as a hobby. So eventually, we actually plucked up the courage to start and created our own influencer page, which has now become our main thing over and above our brand. And we do that together, showcasing our daily outfits, creating video content for brands, photos, going to fashion weeks, and that's really the main thing that we focus on nowadays.
I'm Alice, the other half of Olivia and Alice, but with the same brain and background as what Olivia just said, so I'm afraid you'll probably get double from us, but she said enough about me.
Hello, everyone. My name is Estée Lalonde. I started my career as a content creator before that was even a term. I started as a blogger, so I had an actual blog, a website, and that was about 14 or 15 years ago. So I have been around the block when it comes to all things social media. And then 2 years ago, I decided to start my own brand. It's called Mirror Water. We are a bath and body and wellness brand, all about self-reflection. And of course, community is at the core of everything I do, having built my own community for that long time, 15 years, trying to kind of replicate that from a brand's point of view. You know, it's been a whirlwind of an experience.
Amazing, thank you guys. So I want to get right into it, which is, look, I think that the best kind of talks are where the audience can take home something. And, we all want to learn from you. How do you balance authenticity with brand building? Because I think at the end of the day, we all want to make money. But of course, we all know influencer platforms and having a platform can help you make money. So how do you sort of balance the two?
I think for us, actually, it's a little bit of an annoying answer, but I think it comes naturally to balance the two because you're wanting to be authentic. And I think when it comes to taking brand collaborations, we discuss together what the strategy is going to be, what our goal is. We have the goal in mind, and if anything comes to us that is going to make us veer off that line towards the goal, it's an automatic no. Whereas if there's, for example, a brand that we're already wearing organically that makes sense for us, it's an automatic yes, and we know it doesn't even have to be a discussion whether we're going to take the job or not because we're already wearing those clothes, but that's part of our style. So I don't think it's so much a balance as it is obvious of that's our style. That's people always saying, be true to yourself, but I think that's the key. Be true to yourself, true to your style. That would come naturally to us anyway, and therefore that makes sense and is aligned with our brand.
One thing I will say is there is a big difference between doing brand collaborations, exactly what you said, you only do things that align with you. Now that I have my own brand, obviously I eat, breathe, and sleep my own brand, and all I want to do is talk about it because all I do is work on it. And I think sometimes I have to rein it in a bit, like, girl, you've mentioned your body oil 15 times in your vlog. Like, you need to just zip it. And, honestly, the audience kind of checks it as well. They'll say comments like that, and you're like, okay, that's not the reason I'm here. But it's difficult when you're so passionate. So I think there's always got to be this sort of like check-in with yourself of, why am I creating this content? And I didn't start my channel to promote products. That's not what this is about. And people fall in love with your content and you as a person because of all the other things you mentioned. And of course, you can leverage that community to work with amazing brands and promote your own brand and product or whatever it is. But you do need to remember that connection, which is the whole reason you are able to do what you do.
And Hannah, as a brand consultant, what advice do you give to, brands, influencers, and how important is it to maintain authenticity?
It's super important. I try my best to ensure that all the brands I work with are as transparent as possible. Influencers too. I find myself trying actively to be as transparent as possible about everything. So I find it's not as regulated here in the UK, but in some places, I think in the US, and there's a lot that influencers are supposed to do, like being a little bit more transparent about looks they've borrowed, for example, for shows or for events, and not kind of trying to veer away from saying that they have and kind of painting this unattainable lifestyle to their followers and their audience. So for me, I think transparency is kind of really important when it comes to whether I'm working with a brand or whether I'm posting anything for myself on my Instagram account. I try to do everything as transparently as possible.
Thank you so much. And, influence is very important now. We see that, it can lead to real revenue. There's a very funny quote I heard, which was, being famous on Instagram is like being rich in Monopoly. Now, I disagree with that quote. I think, it's really outdated, but how would you respond to that? How do you ensure that your influence means something and that it converts, leads to tangible results, aka, can drive business?
Well, in terms of our platform, we like to keep it a community. So quite a lot of our followers DM us and they will ask us lots of questions and want to chat about products. So with us, it's keeping that authenticity of being able to chat to our followers. And although it's sort of an influence over, maybe it would influence their purchases and things like that, because at the end of the day, our platform is focusing mainly on fashion. So ours is going to be talking about clothes and things like that. That's what people are following us for. So it's not necessarily political or anything bigger, but I would like to think we have a positive influence over encouraging them to maybe wear more colour, because that's what our page focuses on as well a lot, and have fun with it. And I think that is a good thing. I think anything that gives people a bit of light relief from the pressures of the day-to-day cost of living crisis, etc., is a nice thing, that people can have some time away from that and just talk about clothes. So we try and keep it light and fun and keep it relatable, as well as having that slightly, attainable style, but also in line with the fashion girl going to fashion week and things like that. So there is that aspirational element as well.
Thank you. And Estée, I mean, you're somebody who's used your influence to create a brand. I know with you, Alice and Olivia, it was sort of the other way around. You had your brand first and then you used Instagram at the back of it. But I'd be really interested to hear from you, Estée. How did you, realize, okay, there's a way I can monetize this following?
Yeah, I mean, we don't talk about this too often, do we? It's a touchy subject, but it's my job, to do this. And I think maybe the first time I realized it, rather than a brand collaboration, was I did a jewelry collaboration with another brand, which was just sort of like a project-based thing. And I sort of started to see how an actual business was benefiting from my audience, essentially. So that was the first time I actually saw it as a case study, I would say. And that sort of gave me the sort of tick in my head of, wow, like this would be possible for me to do something like this on my own. Just to go back to your question about how do you make it convert, I think earlier we were talking about like VCs and sort of knowing your audience there. It's the same thing with influence. You have to know what works for me is not going to work for someone else, and what I talk about isn't going to work for someone else. And if you're a TikToker with 8 million followers, for instance, that doesn't necessarily mean you're going to get a percentage of those people to convert into a sale. It's very different than maybe someone who's cultivated their audience for 10 or 15 years. We've really built a trust with our audience, and like you were saying, you only talk about things that align with you, and I feel the same way. I'm sort of going off on my own little tangent now, but I'm just trying to think if I missed anything out. I don't think so.
No, it's good. It makes my job easier. I get to ask less questions. Well, could you share, a sort of story where, I think one of the biggest concerns for influencers in managing this is you're really public, you're really exposed to comments, to negative comments, to trolling. And I mean, I'd love to hear from you, Hannah, all of the girls really, how have you dealt with that, and how do you deal with the pressure of that? Because a lot of the times when you're an influencer, you are the business. And so I'd really be interested to know how you navigate that.
Like bullying, you mean? Trolling, bullying.
Yeah.
I just sort of ignore it. I just block and delete, and I just completely do not deal with it. I just don't give it the time of day at all. Absolutely. Like, honestly, I don't get that much. Like, I don't really get bullied or like trolled. I don't. But when occasionally I do, I just sort of block and delete. I don't know what you guys do, but I just don't even.
Luckily we don't get a huge amount, but I think, like you, just to completely ignore it, you think they don't know me, so they don't have a clue. And also, I suppose being two of us, we're quite lucky, because on some days I'll be like, oh, I feel bad about it, and she'll be like, don't be silly, and then vice versa. Whoever's feeling in the worst mood, the other one can pull the other one up. So I think actually you've just got to ignore it and not let it get to you. And mostly the things are so, you just think that's not me at all, so it doesn't make you feel bad because it's not relevant.
Yes to all of those things, and now I'm at this stage where I can ignore it. 15 years deep, there's not much you can say to surprise me. I know it all. I guess when I started, I was only 19 years old, so those are very formative years, especially when it comes to your self-esteem. So if someone commented, oh, looks like she's gained weight or lost weight, or her eyebrows look weird, or that hairstyle really doesn't suit her, or did you see the way she did, as much as you say you want to ignore it, I felt like especially in that phase, it does impact you, and it definitely shaped who I am now as a person and how I move through the world. I mean, how can it not? You have eyeballs judging everything you do, but there are a lot of amazing people who lift you up at the same time. But I will say it is really difficult to get hung up on that one negative comment. And like, there's something that someone said to me a few weeks ago, and I thought, God, do I do that? Like, do I need to get my teeth fixed? And then I'm like looking at my teeth. But you know, it's like these little things that do kind of cling on, and you have to just shake it off. It doesn't really matter. But the worst is when someone will attack your character. I think that's the worst than like a physical thing, because like you said, they don't know you, but they know a version of you.
No, I've just always found it a really interesting topic because, you know, you guys are the face of your business, you are your brand, you are your business. And I think that that's something that, particularly the business of influence, you have to deal with in an acute way that most other brand founders wouldn't. So I'm pleased to hear that, you know, you're all managing to navigate it so well. I think we've not got much more time, so I want to end it on an International Women's Day related question. And then we'll open it up to the audience for questions. I'm looking at Nina and she's nodding, which means yes, I'm right on time. So, you know, I think it's so easy and I almost get annoyed with it. So many people, you know, have negative things to say or misconceptions. Some of my closest friends are influencers and I only see the positive sides that come out of it. I'm like, if you're building your own business, go you know? And I think, you know, this is an amazing, supportive audience. So I'd just like to know from you guys, what role do you believe, you know, you or influencers can have or have had in shaping the discussion around social issues, women's rights, especially within the context of International Women's Day? I mean, I could speak about this for ages, but I'd love to hear from you guys.
I've been quiet for a while. I get really nervous when I'm speaking publicly. I had so much to say, and then I get down the seat and it's blank. I try to use my platform to speak on everything. I find that it's a shame to have. I have probably not that many. I think I have 88,000. I had 92,000 followers, but I lost 4,000, I think, in bots and stuff. But I think it's a shame to have a platform like that and not speak out on current affairs and issues that are happening around the world. And I think that's why I have like a bit of an issue with the term influencer, and I think I prefer like key opinion leader, because a lot of the people that I see in the industry that have substance, they're always, you know, talking about something and giving their opinion, and it's something I admire and value, and so I try and get educated on things, and I try to speak out on things, and yeah, I hope that people listen. So
Yeah, I feel like with our community, I feel it's a privilege to be able to have younger women and girls looking up to us or asking us questions about things. And to be honest, we try and reply to as many people as possible and try and give advice, mentor younger people, especially with having started a brand, don't we? I know that I would have actually really liked that when I was starting out, or when we were starting our brand. I feel we sort of fumbled our way through. This is more on the brand side actually than the influencer side, sorry, but because that came first for us. We just had to get on with it, and we didn't really ask particularly anybody for help. I think it was more, we were lucky that the product was already selling before we had any sort of e-commerce platform or anything, so we just had to run with it. But we quite often get people asking us how to do this, can I pick your brains? And I think I just would have loved that for us when we were younger. So yes, by all means, anybody pick our brains, please. Like, we're really open to it, and especially younger women and girls. And I feel proud when I then go on to see them achieve something. And if we could have helped a tiny little bit in that, then that's amazing. So yeah.
I think it's obviously very important to talk about anything that feels personal to you or that you feel like you can help others with. I share a lot about mental health, so that's what a huge part of my channel has always been about. And I think just seeing, you know, yourself represented in someone else is really important. It's difficult because you want to be vulnerable and you want to share about your own opinions and all those things, but it is a tricky place to be sharing opinions sometimes. I sometimes have a vulnerability hangover when I feel like I've overshared and I've like talked a little bit maybe too personally about my own mental health journey or all of those things. But I think it's important to share and just show the people that you for me, it's my passion is sort of showing people that you can have struggles and still have a productive life and still have a fulfilling life. So that's something that I really focus on personally is mental health.
Do we have time for a few audience questions? One or two? Does anybody want to raise their hands? Who has a question?
From a marketing perspective, TikTok users can be quite brutal to brands, and people run to the comments section. And I'm seeing more influencers these days feeling like they need to preface gifting or unboxing, kind of saying, "I'm so lucky to have this. I really appreciate it." Is that something that you're finding is kind of impacting your day-to-day roles?
Sorry, I'm not on TikTok, so...
I guess it could be Instagram too, I guess, because it's related. People often relate it back to cost of living and all of that, but it's something that I'm seeing as a consumer.
Yeah, that's true. We only accept gifting that is, again, aligned with our style. So it would more be items of clothing, etc. for us. And I know what you mean about the TikTok comment section being brutal. Our main platform is Instagram, although we are on TikTok. And we have had a couple of comments, but nothing wild. But in general, I feel like you do have to declare the gifting anyway. I know that's not what you meant, but we would say, oh, this is gifted anyway, because obviously the ASA regulations. But yeah, I know what you mean about that, but we haven't really had too much of a problem with it, can I be honest? Yeah.
I will add to that. So when I first started doing this 15 years ago, I mean, the gifting... To accept a gift and post about a gift, it was drama to be like, this was sent to me, and you'd have to go on a 15-minute spiel about how lucky you are to receive it, and all of that stuff. So I know what you're saying. I think I saw a haul the other day, and most of the comments were like, thank you so much for not doing a disclaimer about being so lucky to be gifted. I don't know, you can't really win. I think, of course, you're very lucky to be gifted all these things. And I think, for me personally, it's like, just list it in the description and move on with our lives. But it's true, you are kind of like, if you don't disclose it, what you were saying earlier, it does create this false sense of like, everyone should be getting 15 million lipsticks a week, and that's not normal. I've only got one, I was going to say, I've only got one pair of lips, but that technically wouldn't be true. Sorry. Thanks.
That was amazing. Thank you so much. I think that was the perfect innuendo to end the International Women's Day panel talk. Thank you so much for having me, and thank you guys so much.